Hey folks, Dave Temple here. As you know, my podcast is all about talking to the best thriller writers in the world. Now, while I don't put myself in that category of the best, I've certainly got my hat now in the ring. And after nearly 3 years of hosting this podcast, I think it's time to toot my own horn, if you will. So with that, I'm offering my thriller, The Poser, for sale all this month. It stars Detective Pat Norelli, a rookie cop working the overnight beat in Hollywood when one of the town's biggest stars is found dead in her Hollywood Hills home only hours after winning an Oscar. Beloved by her fans, Pat thinks someone wants this star dead and sees this as a way to forge her own path and get the promotion she craves. I'm proud of the response I've gotten from fans, and I'm confident you're going to like The Poser. So for the rest of this month, you can get the ebook for only $5 or the paperback for $14. Since I do this weekly podcast as a free service, perhaps you'd consider this as a way to help out a fellow thriller writer. There are two ways to reach the link. First, you can go to davidtemplebooks.com, scroll down to see The Poser, click, and you're on your way. Or head over to Amazon. You can find it there. Again, davidtemplebooks.com or Amazon. Thanks in advance for your support. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to The Thriller Zone. I'm your host, David Temple, and welcome to one of the fastest growing podcasts in the world. You could call us, let's call it your front row seat to the best thriller writers in the world. That's what we are. And you know, every once in a while, we debut authors. The debut authors who are breaking out with their very first killer novel, we feature them. As in today, T.R. Hendricks has a book called The Instructor. And I don't want to go in too much because I want you to hear all the juice in the show, but this thing is dynamite. It is hot. It's on fire. It drops this week. His debut is this week. It's a big, big week for T.R. Hendricks, and I am thrilled. We've been talking about getting together for well over a year. And as they say, the planets have finally aligned, and I could not be more happy for this guy. He has lived it, researched it, put in the sweat equity, and he deserves everything coming his way. So put your hands together, kick back and relax, pour yourself a cocktail, whatever it is, iced tea, you name it, and get comfortable because you're in for a heck of a ride for a guy who is right there on the edge and about to skyrocket into the atmosphere. Please welcome T.R. Hendricks on The Thriller Zone. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, welcome to The Thriller Zone. I'm your host, David Temple. T.R. Hendricks is with us. We're talking about The Instructor, and boy, oh baby, oh boy. So good.
That's what I like to hear. That's an intro right there.
Welcome to the show, dude.
Oh man, thank you so much for having me. It's like we've been saying online. It's a long time coming, and I'm pumped. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, the pleasure is mine. I got to. We're going to get to the book in a second, but sure. A couple of things. I was drilling down in our DM messages on Twitter, and I'm like, all right, how long has it been since I've been talking to Tim?
Yeah.
And I check back, and I go, our first DM was Thanksgiving 2021.
Wow. Okay.
Because I think, let's see, I launched in June of 21.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you started showing me some TZ love. And I was like, man, this guy's just coming out of nowhere loving on me. And I'm like, dude, thank you for your support. That was in Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up a few months later, 2/3/22, 5 days before my birthday. Thank you very much. You and I reached back out and we discussed, hey, you said maybe one day we can collaborate on a show. And I'm like, dude, count on it, or something to that effect.
Yep.
And here we are, a year and 2 months-ish later. You're a debut author. You got a kick-ass, starting out of the gate, rock star novel,
mm-hmm.
and you're on your way.
It's wild. It's just today is like the first day that it's like really, really hit, like full on hit like a freight train, because everything leading up to the debut, it was like have I done enough? There's always something not to do. It's if I'm not working on books 2 and books 3, editing or creating, it's have I done enough blog posts? Have I done enough podcasts or social media? Have I reached out to all the people that I can do? Have I done everything that I can do to make this launch as successful as possible? And it starts with writing a good book, of course, but then pushing it from there. And so there was always like that distraction. People would be like, "Oh, aren't you excited? It's 4 days away. It's 3 days." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I got to still do this, and this." And then like it finally like hit where it's like, okay, it's out in the wild now. It's done, and I can just sit back and enjoy the ride at this point. So it's awesome. It's a great time,
dude. I as you know, being a fan of the show, I've had 100 and I don't know 20, 30 people on, and I've had some biggies, and the biggies are as nervous as you are. The biggies are as wigged out as you are. The biggies wonder, who did I talk to the other day? And this blew me away. Bob Dugoni.
Okay.
And he was telling me, I don't know if he said it on the show or off the mic, but he said, "Oh, David, yeah, every time I get the jitters, I wonder, is this book crap? Is anyone going to like it? Are they going to, what if they go, 'Oh, Bob, you just dropped the ball this time'?" I'm like, "You're kidding me, dude. You got like 20 some books."
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that it's not just the rookies coming out the gate that have that feeling, because that's a little reassuring that those that are 20 books in are still getting those butterflies and jitters every time they put pen to paper, as it were.
Yeah. Dude, I have to take, and may I call you dude?
Sure. Call me whatever you like. It's your show. I'm just here. I'm here for the ride, baby.
I love, as you know, I was up at 4:50 this morning trying to finish the last of this book, and I was doing a little bit of social media posting on your behalf.
I appreciate that.
Yes, and of course I've looked at you for quite some time, and nice beard, by the way.
Thank you.
But what's really nice is the sweater, and I was like, I turned to my wife, "Tammy, do you think Tim's going to show up in a sweater? I mean, he's always wearing a sweater, or maybe it's just because he's wearing a sweater on his promotional. Maybe he always wears a sweater. I think I've seen him wear a sweater." So I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have this ready. "Welcome to T.R. Hendricks, the instructor. It's a beautiful day."
I got to take off my dress shoes and put on my sneakers just to sit down on the couch.
It's T.R. Hendricks. Wait, here he comes. Okay, I'll stop.
That's great.
So when I
do love my sweaters, though. Yeah, I love the ease of putting on just a sweater over the attire during the winter. It's
sure. Well,
better.
Just having some fun with you, because I saw that and I'm like, I almost broke out my big fat cardigan, because sometimes I will dress to match the guest. I used to do it with Ted Bell.
Oh yeah,
rest his soul.
Yeah.
I'd put on a suit and an ascot sometimes, and I have a martini in my hand, and we do the show.
Nice. You should have told me we would have done cardigan episode. It would have been great. We could have like changed midway through and stuff. Just kept having costume changes. It would have been fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that for the sequel.
Okay.
We'll have a cardigan session.
Yeah, Cardigan Wednesday, we'll call it. All right. Well, I got a couple of things to cover. Anybody who follows you on social media, like me, knows that you love your family, your 49ers, and your woodworking.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this, which is totally cool. And if you haven't followed him on Instagram, we'll tell you about how to do that later in the show. Yeah. But on a professional note, some will likely know that you're former United States Army captain who served as a tank platoon leader, then a military intelligence officer. Now, I'd like to know something. If you were to boil it down, by the way, thank you for serving.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If you were to boil it down and had to list let's say the top three things. I don't want to put pressure on you, but I want to get to know you in a way that I haven't gotten to know you before. So
All right.
give me three things that you learned in the service that that you think that they can be. These are the things I learned in the service that really helped my career. These are the things in the service that helped me save my butt. And I'm kind of referring as it relates to the book. Or these are the three things that really, really set me on my course to becoming who I am today.
Okay. That's a great question. The stuff that immediately comes to mind is a couple of, Army/military mantras. No plan survives first contact, right? It's you can draw up the greatest plan in the world. You can have everything ready to go, all the details. And then the moment hijinks ensue and stuff starts flying back and forth both ways, that plan can go out of the window, go right out the window. And you need to be adaptable. You need to be resilient. You need to be calm under pressure. It's coming from, all ranks, you want that, but particularly on the officer side, because your men are looking for you for that leadership. So, that certainly translated over into civilian life that, hey, sometimes things aren't going to go the way you think that they are because you have your plan laid out, and just because it's perfect and in your mind, everything's going to go accordingly. Life throws you curveballs, and you got to be able to adapt to those and move on. So that was a huge lesson, both from just the service aspect and then the deployment side. That was really a big takeaway as I think the top one, I would have to say.
Okay. Well, now as we head toward the instructor, because I want to make sure for those folks who don't stay with me for the entire 35 to 45 minutes, that I get all the good stuff, all the juice, all the heat up front.
Yeah.
But here's what I'd like to know. How does that past as intelligence officer inform your writing today? Because I'm telling you something, without breaking out into my review and such, it is so clear that you know what the hell you are talking about. So how does that past inform that writing? Outside of the obvious that, well, I learned this, so I wrote that in the book.
Yeah, I think, and I recently did a piece on this where I described this also, where I'm amazed at individuals who weren't necessarily on active duty or who didn't deploy, how well and convincingly they can capture military veterans and military training. Guys like Nick Petrie and Connor Sullivan come to mind right off the bat, and just two guys that I read their books and I was like, they had to have been veterans themselves. They nailed this. And then I was surprised that they weren't, so it's not necessarily a prerequisite that you have to have it. But in my experience, just both from being in the Army, being on active duty, having 2 deployments to Iraq under my belt, having gone through the schools that I went through, it just lends a ease of authenticity to my writing, where I can pull so easily upon what the sights and sounds are. Like I can tell you what downtown Baghdad smells like. I can tell you how the sand would part over your boots like it was confectionate sugar. Like those are descriptions and details that other people can incorporate, but they have to do like the research for it. But having been there and lived it, and I hate to be cliche, but the write what it certainly comes through. And that goes for everything, not just from the experiences, but like the day-to-day interactions with, the Iraqis or my fellow soldiers, the experiences that we were in, the situations that we were in, the like you alluded to, the training that I've had and the different intelligence methodologies, it all goes into the mixing bowl, as it were, and then I stir it on up and throw a bunch of crazy in there from whatever my imagination can come up with. And people, it's funny. I have read a lot of the reviews on Goodreads in particular, and a lot of people come forward with like, man, I wasn't ready for how violent this book got, or there's some brutal scenes in it. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of normal for me.
Yeah.
So, I'm like, man, I really am messed up there, but that's how it comes through. And that's, how that has helped in the writing.
Yeah. And there's a couple things I want to ask, and I don't want to dive into a place that you're not comfortable. So you can push it aside if you like. But, this cat, Derek, is he's a little effed up in his head, rightly so.
Certainly.
And I find myself, as I read authors like yourself, I find, oh my God, I have no idea what it was like. I think I have an idea.
Yeah.
I watch television. I think I have an idea. I watch movies. Oh yeah, I got a pretty good idea. I got no idea with the shit that you guys went through and what you bring back and how it stays up in your cranium. And I wonder, do you suffer that? Do you suffer it and go, you know what? It was part of what I went through. I can compartmentalize it because it was yesterday, because I'm now in the States. I'm safe and secure with my family, etc. Or are those deep, dark moments in the back of your head in the dark of the night when you wake up in a sweat and you go, oh yeah, okay, I'm not there, I'm here?
Yeah. And the answer is both.
Wow.
And it's not, it's not off topic. Like I'm perfectly comfortable talking about it. And I actually like using these opportunities to discuss it, because I personally feel that the more I relate my experiences and the more just knowledge there is out there about PTSD, the more people can advocate for the services that they need. And you never know. I mean, this is a podcast about thriller novels, but maybe there's a vet or maybe just somebody who experienced trauma out there that says, wow, this is the wake up call that I needed. And that's kind of the path that I led. It's been a long, bumpy road, since I got out in 2008. I like to call it a roller coaster because it has its peaks and its valleys. And when you're high, it's great. When you're low, it's hard. And I got really, really low. And it took the better part of a decade plus of counseling and just going through things and these rough episodes that finally brought me to a place in just recent years where I was able to accept the things that not only happened over there, but accept how it had impacted my life after the military and all the hardship that had come with that and the reintegration that had come with that. And so that puts me in a good place as we sit here now discussing about it, but it certainly wasn't without its trials and tribulations. And the writing actually was a big part of the therapeutic process for me, because like you said, jumping up in the middle of the night, screaming or crying or putting my wife at the time in a headlock, those things happen, and they happened often. And my particular symptom that was so devastating was these infinitely intricate, detailed, horrible nightmares, So I started, because I was always a decent writer, through high school and college and everything. So I started writing those nightmares down on paper, I type them out when I'd get to work, because if I didn't, it was just living rent free in my head, Wow. So I found that if I put the nightmare onto the page, it somehow expunged that horrible experience of the night before. And I wrote some really messed up stuff. It's like your brain just like it comes up with things when you're sleeping, and you think your guard's down, but it's not. And that kind of like, I very early on, I learned like, okay, this is a therapeutic method for me. And then I started writing more and more like short stories and manuscripts, and I would incorporate more and more of my experiences into the writing. So again, I could lend that authenticity to the characters, but also it was a healing process for me as well, you know, to expunge that and get it out.
Yeah, I get that. And the, you used a great word. It's healing catharsis.
Yeah.
And you said something a second ago that made me think, and I want to make sure I get this point across, because you made the phrase, "Oh, write what you know," which I used to go, "Yeah, whatever. We're writers. We get to do it. You know, that's what we're doing. We're creating shit."
Sure.
However, as I have progressed through the years, I realized that, yeah, that does make a lot of sense because of the authenticity and the minutia of details with which you can tell a story, like little tiny things in this book, The Instructor, that you say, that I found myself, especially when it came to survival. I'm going to say this again in a minute. I found myself going, oh. And I was a Cub Scout, Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. So some of these things, so I got a pretty good working knowledge of it, but I was like, wait a minute, I don't recall ever that.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I'm going to pull something out of the thin air. The way you got out of a plastic cuff, that was brilliant. Okay. That was good. The way you carved a knife out of a rock, but it was the type of rock in the water that you found that enabled you to be able to chisel it off to the point that you could get a good edge to be able to create it. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I know that. Yeah. So anyway, tiny little things that made me do that. But here's my point, Tim. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. Here's what it is. You don't have a problem with, though, like you mentioned Connor and who else did you? Nick, right. Yep. Both guys did not serve. However, you buy it when they talk about it. You really buy it. Now, I'm going to admit something. When I first started writing, I thought, I'm just going to try my hand at something. I didn't know any better. I didn't know any different. So I just made up this character and I went with it. And I did a little thing called NaNoWriMo, and I banged out 50,000 words in a month. And I'm like, okay, it's a great exercise. Now,
I'm a veteran of Nano myself.
Yeah, you can't beat it, NaNoWriMo. So, but what I did was I wrote something that I was interested in, but I didn't have a lot of knowledge in. So I kind of faked my way through it. He's a former sniper, retired, Now, if I handed it you to today, I wouldn't hand it to you today because it was my first, I wrote 3 in a row and it's my first attempt. And you'd go, well, you evidently didn't know this. And it's clear that you're not aware of that. However, it was my interest and I was just trying to do the exercise. But the real point I'm trying to get at is you read an author, and if they don't have the true experience, but they show in their work that they do know what they're talking about, you got no problem with it, do you? You don't care.
Not at all. No. Yeah. I mean, my biggest fear as an author, and I like to joke around with friends and family that know that I was particularly in the Army, because I write about a Marine protagonist and an Air Force antagonist. And it's like, why did you choose those two services? Because even though we're all in the military, the terminology is different, the procedures are different, the slang is certainly different. So I've had to do a lot of research, to get down to the minutia of, okay, what would the Air Force term for a pilot, a slang term for the pilot, be for the ground crew that fuels the jet and wants to, give the guy a hard time? Like, geez, I got to go find that because I don't know it off the top of my head.
And what is it?
Zipper suited sun gods, I think. Yeah. Which I felt it was very appropriate from what I've learned, but I jest. We're all on the same team, but
exactly.
My biggest fear as an author is an Air Force veteran picking up the book, and like, I'm talking specifically about the sequel now, but like, picking up the book and going, that's completely wrong. That would that would never happen. Or, survival, people that are interested in wilderness survival and hiking and camping and everything, no, that's completely wrong. He made that up. This guy obviously lives in the city and hasn't experienced the night out in the woods ever in his life. Which isn't far from the truth. I don't regularly get out into the woods. I'm not a survival expert, but I am a very good researcher. And I do have primary source friends who are survival experts that were willing to lend some of those details. And that's where they merge together with the writing is, okay, I can take these seemingly innocuous points of the Onondaga chert, which is, something I researched with a friend telling me about how to make a stone knife, with percussion napping. And I can blend that into the story. And I don't have to necessarily know it. I'm never going to know everything. I'm not going to be a 30-year survival expert,
right.
who built his own teepee out in the back,
right.
woods of Arizona or anything. So you're never going to get to that level. But could a survival expert pick up my novel and be like, okay, this guy he did enough research and put in enough details in the right places to be convincing that, this is how, this character would actually go about things. And that's my biggest point with the authenticity,
Okay. And that is the perfect place to take this pause. I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss some of the key elements in the book. And it happens to be survival skills. Imagine that. What great
timing.
Hey,
what about that?
Yeah, you're with T.R. Hendricks on the Thriller Zone. We'll be right back.
The best thrillers, the Thriller Zone. And now back to the show.
And welcome back. We're with T.R. Hendricks and his debut thriller called The Instructor. And we're going to, over his shoulder, in my hand, this thing is, here's the thing. It's a hell of a read that you're going to want to be ripping through the pages. And there's a lot of times when I get a thriller, I want to rip through the pages, of course. But then again, like a tasty steak, I want to savor it. I did not want this thing to end.
Right.
All right. We mentioned before the break, Tim, that we were talking about survival skills. So I feel like I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. How much of the pure survival skills are on point, as I say, meaning no movie influenced Rambo BS, but I mean, how much percentage wise, roughly, because this thing is packed full of survival skills. You could almost read this book and go, if you picked me up and threw me in the wilderness, I could almost get out of it alive.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, thank you for that. That's a compliment. Like we said earlier, that's the authenticity that I like to go for. So, and I love hearing that. I love hearing that from readers who are like, oh, I can't wait to grab my backpack and go hiking now because I read your book. I'm like, just don't go out into the woods, where they have to send search and rescue after you, because I don't want anybody putting that on me. But I would say the vast majority, 95% or more, is all factual survival, mantras and proven theories and practices that these experts have utilized, in terms of using the rule of three, the 3 days without shelter, 3 days without water, and I'm screwing them all up now. Again,
take your time,
not the expert.
That's okay, but there's a few that in there. You can go many days without food, but you can only go 3 days, I think it is, without water. And I think another thing I learned is it was the order in which you need to prepare yourself: shelter,
water, fire, food.
Fire, food. Yeah. Now I'm like, okay. I mean, you would kind of assume that, but
those are my assumption was always water first, and then they're like, nope, shelter, because and I think that's what the rule of 3 was. It's like 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and then 3 weeks without food is roughly how it goes. And you just don't realize how vicious exposure to the elements can be. And that's why they say, no, get your shelter built first, because sleeping out in the rain, it's a death sentence. You're done. You can go a couple days without water, so you got to work towards those. I did mesh them up a little bit. Not that the rule of 3 and the 4 priorities aren't established practice. They are. I just kind of mashed up how Derek himself prefers to teach them to his students, and
sure.
kind of puts a couple of the priorities on an even plane. But things like using the dog bane plant, or how to scrape dry bulk tree so that you can have tinder for your fire, how to actually do a tinder bundle and keep the bundle in your hands moving in a figure 8 so that the coal doesn't wink out while you're taking another breath off to the side, and the smoke doesn't, get in your eyes. Those were all things that were either researched or imparted on to me by a very close friend who is a survival instructor, and we would talk over these things, and had a couple of phone sessions where he would give me these tidbits and whatnot, and I would just kind of mesh them all together. If I had to pick one, without spoiling anything, if I had to pick one thing that was maybe a little embellished that a real survivalist would roll their eyes at, it's probably the use of the slingshot. But I liked it, I said, and I have fun with it in the sequel, and it's, it's just, it was this interesting thing to me because there's so many, different guys have different things that are their specialties. One guy's got a ninja star or whatever. And I was just like, what's something that could be very plausible in a survival situation that really hasn't been done yet, or at least not done to my knowledge. And so I said, let's give the guy a slingshot and some ball bearings and go from there. So that was fun.
It's so funny you should mention that. That's the only thing, that phrase called taking you out of the story.
Yeah.
So there was, that's the only time in the whole book that I went, wait a minute, rubber tube, piece of leather, ball bear, precision, really? Is that? And then because I used to shoot a slingshot. I had one of those as a kid. Everybody,
sure.
Every boy had a slingshot at one time or another. And I'm like, you gotta really, really, really practice. And I think it was the distance with which, and the specificity with, and the ease with which he killed, that I was like, wow, he must really be good at that.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you got to take with a little bit of plausible deniability. But yeah.
And Tim, that's why they call it fiction.
Thank you.
Hello, how you doing? I mean, come on.
All you slingshot experts out there, don't at me. Don't be. Oh well, your ball bearing was an eighth of a circumference larger. Like, get out of here. It's fun. It's
you come
stuff.
over here. I'll show you some ball bearings that'll break your face. Yeah.
I'll show you what we can do with that rubber tube.
Yeah, come over here.
Show me the soles of your feet.
All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap that little piece by going, I liked the details. I can suspend my belief. It doesn't matter. It's an escape from the ordinary life. That's why we read.
That's why we read. That's why we write.
Yeah. Now, in fact, I'm going to tell you something. This is really interesting. And this popped into my head about halfway through the book for some reason. And I'm going to sound like Captain Obvious. So that's okay.
All right.
But I'm surprised it took me this long to come to this full realization. But while reading the book, I came to really appreciate, like in a new way, exactly why I and other readers like me so thoroughly enjoy reading the type of military thrillers that you and Don Bentley and Jack Carr and Brad Taylor and Andrews and Wilson, to name just the few that pop off the top of my head and who've been on the show, minus Jack Carr because he can't get on the show just yet. But all of that is because we wish, and this is what it is. And I'm like, how did it take me so friggin' long to realize this? It's because we wish we could have experienced what you did in some form or fashion.
Okay.
I know you were in the shit, and I know it was hot and hairy in a lot of different ways, but in some form or fashion, here's the key. And it's going to sound a little over the top, but I mean it. We want to be heroes just like you guys were.
And I deeply appreciate that sentiment, and I think it's great. I wrestle with being labeled as a hero. I think I served my country. It was something I wanted to do since I was a boy. It was a life goal. And while I experienced some of the more extreme and unsavory portions of service, namely things blowing up and people shooting at you, there's always somebody that's experienced more and has experienced greater hardship and have done the truly heroic things. The ones who sacrificed themselves for their brothers and sisters in arms. The ones that jumped on the grenade or ran into a burning vehicle and pulled their buddy out. Medal of Honor winners. Like those are the true heroes. I did my part and I appreciate that. But yeah, that's kind of how I view it. And
I get it. And I get that. And look, I didn't want to get heavy handed on that. And I realize I completely relate to what you're saying. And I'm not talking about the hero on the pedestal. I'm talking about, dude, literally the fact that you showed up.
Yeah.
The fact that you said, I'm willing to do this for my country, in part makes you a hero to me. That's me. This is a me thing. Okay.
I appreciate that.
It's because I, for whatever reason, back in the day, of course, I'm quite a bit older than you, son, so pull up a chair. It's that I didn't get the opportunity. I didn't do it. Right. Yeah. So it's the, you guys have done something that I go, God, I wish I could have done some of that. Now, my stepson is in the Army. He's up in Fairbanks, Alaska right now, and he's taking care of business. Yeah, and I respect the hell out of that kid. And he was one of those guys that played in the dirt and played Army with his buddies, and that's all he ever wanted to do way, 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 way back. And he's living it today, and I couldn't be more proud. And so, Jake, to you, wherever you are, take care. Anyway, I just want to say that that's cool. Now, I got to get to what I love about the Instructor.
Okay.
And if you've been listening to the show as long as you have, and my friends who listen, I can be a little bit hyperbolic, maybe, because I get excited about shit. Okay, I get to do what I do best, which is talk to people and entertain and educate. And I love to read. But I got to tell you something. I'm going to dive down on this thing, and you don't fluff this off because I mean every word I'm saying. I don't just like blow hot air up your skirt to make you, he liked me. Yeah, not about that. So here's a few things I like. Number one, strong open. First line, everything capable of combustion has an ignition point. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words, and I was already in.
Yeah, I'm proud of that line. That's like one of the best lines I've ever written.
Dude, that opened the door, and I shit you not. I went, okay, I'm in. Mm-hmm. And then you go right into it. The key to survival is knowing when and how to produce the flame. Okay, and then now I'm like, okay, I know it's about flame. The cover says it's about flame. He's survivalist, instructor, and so forth. Anyway, so there's number one. Number two, and on a semi-related poetical fashion, the exceptional slow simmer. Mm-hmm. Man, that was tasty. All right. Masterfully calculated backstory. Meaning you didn't like, as an old girlfriend of mine used to say, I'm not giving you all the candy in the lobby, buddy. And that was cool. Number 4, the way you drip fed your reveals. Drink just a little bit at a time. These are all things that I really like, folks, in case you're taking notes. Memorable characters, well drawn. Not over the top, not cartoonish, not stupid. Great characters. And perhaps most importantly, here's my favorite part. And the guy on the cover, at the bottom of the cover, says it. Mark Rainey, big fan of the show, been on here several times, or regular, said it best with his blurb. Packed with action, tension, and humanity, the Instructor delivers. And probably my favorite part of that is the humanity, which really shines in this book. Let's absorb that for a moment. Yeah, isn't that good?
That's high praise from both you and Mark. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, dude, as far as I'm concerned, you got Nick Petrie crackling with intensity, vivid with authenticity and emotion in the back. You got Mark Rainey on the cover. If you need a blurb on your next one, just let me know, because we can probably fit it up in some corner somewhere.
Yeah, sure. And don't forget Simon Gervais and Connor Sullivan. They also blurbed it too. So yeah, just great guys and great supporting encouragement from them along the way. I'm deeply fortunate and grateful for their endorsements.
Well, I save the sip of fine scotch or the Robusta cigar for the end, because this is my finale.
All right.
And I think the best compliment I can pay you, and I don't think I exaggerate very often on the show, maybe not too much, but it takes away nothing from the masterfully talented, superbly gracious man, Lee Child. But I think Derek Harrington is the next new Jack Reacher.
Wow. You heard it here first, folks. Whoa. Wow. Wow. I thought you said high praise before. That's crazy. That's awesome.
And let me tell you why I say that. This is not just, ask anybody who really, really knows me. And I don't sit around and hyperbolize too much, because here's why. This guy reminded me of Jack Reacher a lot. Mm-hmm. The way he enters the scene, the way he suffers all these skeletons in the closet and the harrowing nightmares and the disgruntled, broken apart marriage, etc. And the little boy. I mean, there's so many things. And he's big and he's bold and he's broad and he's bashing brains and kicking ass. But the humanity and the humanity of him, the heart of him comes through in so many different little ways. And I'm like, man, I just want more of this guy. I just want to see what he does next. And I want to see it. And I thought, he's got a hit on his hands. I mean, I wonder if people understand how big of a hit he has. And does he understand it? Because I think it's northbound, baby.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, from your lips, right? Let's hope it takes off the way it is, and we can have a long-standing relationship with Derek and all his supporting cast. That's the dream right there. And I'm always said that being a published author and having my book on the shelf was like a lifelong dream. If I get to do that repeatedly, I mean, wow, that's just icing on the cake. That's where we're going from there. So
I got this theory I'd like to share with you. And I don't know what your belief in God, Jesus, higher power, heaven, hell is. It doesn't really matter in the big picture. What I think it really matters is how it resonates inside your soul, right?
Sure.
But there's this, without getting preachy, and I may or may not leave this in the show. I may cut it out. Who knows? But here's this thing I have, and I grew up as a PK, so I know where I'm coming from when I say this. PK is a preacher's kid. There is a verse in the Bible somewhere where it's talking about God will give you the desires of your heart. So here's my theory. I don't believe that a higher power will use that, God, universe, will embellish you with a certain myriad of beliefs and or passions, and then develop in you and allow you to develop yourself, because you are God in and of yourself, to develop those talents, rise to the occasion, want to perpetuate it, and then go, oh yeah, about all that dream stuff. Yeah, no, you're not going to actually get it. Psych.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think that happens. I think if that is your desire and it's woven into who you are, and that's your path, you're going to get it.
Yeah. And I'm on board with that, because that's something that I felt from the very early on when I started writing and seeing that I had a talent for it. And then certainly when I made the conscious decision to be like, I want to pursue not only publishing, but being traditionally published, and getting my book on the shelf one day, the doubt of, will I ever be able to achieve it, never really settled in. Like I never doubted myself, because I knew I had the talent, and I knew I had the determination and the perseverance to get there. Now, I didn't know when I was going to get there, but I was willing to take those hits in stride and just put my head down and keep going. So that's kind of the biggest advice I have for other writers out there with the same dream is don't quit. Just believe in what you have, believe in what you're doing. You have to put the work in. Talent only gets you so far. It's like the NFL draft. It's there's the guy that can run the 4.1 40, but the guy that outworks him runs a 4 flat. So you got to put the work in. You got to perfect your craft. You got to do your research. But if you have that belief, you have that determination, you'll get there. And that's honestly how I felt, is I'm going to get there eventually. I don't care if I'm 80 years old. Eventually my book will be on that shelf, because it feels preordained to me. There's no doubt in my mind that I'll achieve that goal. I just got to put the work in to get there.
Bam.
Boom.
Dude, that right there is that I love hearing, because that tells me you got the goods. It's very obvious you got the goods, but that you got the heart and the drive. So I want my listeners to walk away with that. And of course, you anticipated my finale question, because you've listened to the show. I always end the show with what's your best piece of writing advice, and you just did it, and I didn't even have to ask you.
Yeah, see, unprompted. We got a rhythm going here.
Baby,
we're synced up.
Chills. All right, the only thing left to do, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna save this, and if he wants to play along, if you got an extra couple of minutes, folks, sure. Today we're recording this on Tuesday. The book drops today. This will actually air on Wednesday, so today's your big day. I know you're stuffed up to here with the promotions and marketing. Yeah. So if you want to give me 60 more seconds, we can play rapid fire questions if you wanted to.
Absolutely, let's do it.
This just in. All right, we'll start off easy. Pen and paper or keyboard? It's a favorite.
Keyboard.
Knife and a piece of parachute cord, or fire igniter and a compass?
Let's go with knife. That was a tough one.
I'm good for that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to dig a little deeper, Mr. Survivalist. You suddenly find yourself in the wilderness. You have shirts, pants, socks, and boots. Way good. However, you only have 2 things in your pocket to help you survive. Only 2. What are they and why?
Well, I'd go with a ferro rod for fire starting, because it has thousands of strikes to it. So that's, conceivably hundreds and hundreds of fires that you'll be able to start. And then I got to go with my Stat Gear survival knife, because it's like this own little survival kit all in one. Super sharp blade, but it's got all these incredible incorporated features. So it's like a very versatile tool. It's a bunch of tools in one. So yeah, I'm going with that survival knife in particular, and my ferro rod.
All right. I'm going to pause 1 second here. Survival knife. Now, what's the brand name on that again? I'm going to give him some props.
Stat Gear. STATGEAR.
All right. And the second thing, spell the ferro rod.
FERRO.
Yep. And that's just it's an igniter so that it never.
Striker.
Yeah. Got it.
Like a flint and steel. That's all.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. And finally, if your attackers, you're still back out in the wilderness.
Okay.
They're on your trail. You suddenly came to a cliff with only one way of escape. How long? It's a long drop to a small body of water. You don't know how long, but it's pretty long. You don't know how deep, but it's maybe not very deep. What would you do? Would you turn and face the music, or would you leap and take your chances?
Think I would like to split the difference where I set it up so that my attackers think I've gone over the edge. And as they approach it to confirm said leap, I come out behind them and kick their asses off the side.
True military mind at work, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it.
Hell yeah. We're not going out without a fight.
Yeah. All right, folks. To learn more, visit trhendricksauthor.com, sponsored by Author Bites. And follow him on Twitter at tr_Hendricks. Tim, this has been dadgum good.
Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome episode. Great stuff.
I hope and I wish for you. I don't hope because hope implies I'm not really sure. I wish for you because I know huge success. You're right here on the precipice, buddy, right on the edge. I promise you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the shout outs and encouragement on the socials. And I can't wait to do this again. Let's come back in a year when the sequel hits.
Well, speaking of which, there, little Mr. Literary Agent represented guy. When do you anticipate? I know you're working on the next one already. Do you have a title? Are you talking about it yet? If you're not, it's totally cool.
Yeah, the sequel is finished. It's slated for this time next year, April 2024. It's finished in the sense that I've completed several rounds of revisions and turned it into my editor, Robert Davis at Forge. And he has it now and he's going through his magic that he does. So I'm waiting on getting that back and getting his letter and notes and going back into the process. But in terms of a complete manuscript, yeah, I've already put the 100K words together for the sequel. And it's slated, like I said, April 2024. The tentative title, because it hasn't been approved per se yet, but I've named it The Infiltrator. So we shall see if that gets approved. I haven't heard any detractors, from it, except I think Brad Taylor had a book under the same title, which I didn't know until after I had written it, but whatever,
right.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Different authors can use the same title.
Dude, look at this. We got out in exactly an hour.
Outstanding.
Huge day for you. So happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
How about that? How good, right? Don't you feel yourself just excited for T.R. Hendricks, Tim, we like to call him? And this book, The Instructor, dynamite, just solid. You'll walk away going, you'll be halfway through. You'll be a third of the way through going, there's no way this is his breakout novel. But it is. And I loved it. I just can't say enough about it. Anyway, I'm your host, David Temple. I'll see you next time for another edition of The Thriller Zone.
Little Mama Papa.